All right, let's start from scratch. So today we're going to be talking about comping and the importance of comping and how to get better at comping so that you're able to analyze deals. Now, there's a couple things that I want us to keep in mind when we're looking at comparable properties, all right? And we're going to go over the rules and we're going to go over the slides and we're going to go over how to do it. But there's a few things that I really want to make sure that you guys take note of. So I'm going to share my screen as I normally do. Entire screen, and then I'm going to move this over here. I have, me, I'm kind of a nerd, so I like my slides. But when we are looking at a property, okay, so for instance, I'm just going to use the Zillow Zapper tool that we have right now. Let's say that I'm looking at a property and it's a fixer. Now, if you don't have access to the Zillow Zapper, tell me now, send me a message so that I can get you the link. The link to it should be in your Google Drive. If you don't, I'm just going to copy and paste it in the chat right now, but almost everybody should have access to this, okay? So it's in the chat. You come here, you pick any of the keywords, right, that an investor would be looking for to search for a property. So let's say we go for investor. Investor, I'm going to level with everybody, is a little hit and miss. And the reason that it's hit and miss, you can't access Google Docs. Okay, Kevin, is it your Google Drive folder or just a Zillow Zapper that you can't access? Because if it's both, then we got a problem and I got to fix that today. But if it's just a Zillow Zapper, that might mean I just need to share it with you. And you guys are seeing me do this in real time. I don't see your request or your email there yet. So maybe you haven't requested it. So request access, okay? All right, so the thing about investor. Real estate agents love throwing around the word investor. So they like saying this would be a great property for an investor. This is a great investor or great rental for an investor. And you hit request access, but nothing. Okay. All right. I'm going to give you a call after the training and we're going to get it fixed. Okay, Kev? So anyway, investor is one of those words I think that real estate agents like to throw around just because they think that if something's a rental, they'll say something like it would make a great rental for an investor. If something needs repairs, it would make a great fix and flip opportunity for investors. Real estate agents tend to throw around the word investor way too much. They're way too casual about what a real estate investor is, especially, okay, and this is me educating you guys, especially because most of the time when an investor is purchasing these properties, a couple things to keep in mind. Investors have to typically pay 15% or more for any second or third property that they purchase. All right, that's very important because you want to understand this. So when an investor buys, let's say it's a $500,000 home, all right, 500,000, or let's use 250,000, right, as an average. $250,000 home. They have to come in with 15% down, which is $37,500. That's just the down payment. Then if they're going to finance it, they also have to get a loan. So if they're getting a loan, they're getting a loan on about 213, right? They're getting a loan on that. And then on top of the loan, they have to pay a lender some points. So they have to pay at least 2 points, let's say 2%. So they're spending $37,000 for the down payment, investing, and then they're also investing $4,200 for the points that they have to pay to get a loan. Sometimes the points are 1 point or 1.5 point, but this, I'm just giving you rough numbers. So now they're in it $41,000 just to buy that property as an investment. And then on top of that, they're paying market rate interest rates. So whatever the interest rate is right now, right? I think we're under 7, but we can check. We can go to mortgage rates right now. And then Gemini is going to give me some type of a response. So right now we're at 6.5 to maybe 6.7. That's what the interest rates are. So they're going to be paying 6.5. Now, here's the thing. 90% of the time, the mortgage payment that they're paying is not going to cover the property if they were to use it as a rental. It's just not going to cover it. Okay, so why am I sharing this with everybody? I'm sharing this with everybody because real estate agents, like I said, are very flippant about the word investor. They just like to use it. Oh, it would make a great investment property, not truly understanding the numbers that it would require for an investor to come in and buy the property, right? They're not thinking of the amount of money because it's not just about buying it as an investment property. Okay, just because I bought a second property doesn't mean it's a good investment property. This is the challenge that they have. Again, because most real estate agents are good salespeople, but they're not very good investors. Most real estate agents are horrible real estate investors. And in fact, most of them don't even have investment properties. Maybe they might have a home, but the vast majority of them, and I was guilty of the exact same thing. Okay, as embarrassing as it sounds, I was a great salesperson, but my real estate portfolio sucked. I didn't have anything to show for it. Nothing. I had been selling for almost 25 years as a real estate agent, as a real estate broker, as a real estate coach, as a real estate trainer. No properties to my name up until about 6 or 7 years ago when I started really diving into this stuff. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because if you come here and you look up the word investor on here, sometimes you're just going to find properties that have been completely rehabbed and they're like, would make a great rental. That's not true, right? It's not. Because not only do you have to consider the fact that most of the time the mortgages don't cover the market rents that they're going to get, but you also have to think about this. An investor's coming in with 15% down plus paying the points. So that's about, like I said, $41,000. Now, if they buy a $41,000 home and then they're renting the property out and they're only getting about $1,500 a month, how long is it going to take them for them to get that $41,000 back? It's going to take them 27 months. So they won't see a dime of profit for at least 2 years. Number one, it's going to take them 2 years to see their money back. Oh, and that's assuming that they're getting, $1,500, that they're keeping that as 100% profit, which they're not, because they still have to pay the mortgage. They still have to pay for repairs. They still have to pay for property management. They still have to pay for taxes, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of these properties, when real estate agents say would make a great investment property, the real estate agent's not taking into account, number one, how quickly is the investor going to get that money back? And they're not thinking, well, are they really profiting every month? Is there any type of cash flow? And most of the time there isn't. So it doesn't make a good investment property. Most of these properties only make sense when it's an owner occupant, someone who's going to live in the property. All right. So now let's talk about how to use this and how to do comps. So let's go to repair. I'm going to choose Florida. We're going to come here. So this is a search and it shows all the properties that have the word repair in them. Jacksonville's a pretty crazy market right now. So let's just go check out Jacksonville. It's up here. So right now in Jacksonville, there's about 43 properties have the word repair in them somewhere. Now, that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing, because there could be phrases in there that say something like needs repairs or has been fully repaired. It's something along those lines. So let's just take a look at this one at 449. Active, 2 days on the market. Where's the word repair? Repair. Okay. Some photos have been virtually staged and the pool liner has been virtually repaired. Seller will replace pool liner. Okay. So this is an example of a property that, let's see if it's a fixer or not. Okay. So what this agent did was they virtually staged it. And then, well, no, some of this stuff looks like it's original furniture. This looks like it's older furniture. But I can tell in some of the other rooms, this is virtual. Anyway, the agent's doing their job. They're trying to get the property sold. Now, here's my question. My question is, somebody's going to look at this property and somebody's going to say, well, Paul, what could we offer on this type of a property? What kind of an all-cash offer could we make on this property? And here's the deal. I'm going to tell you right now that this is not the type of property that you're going to be able to make an all-cash offer on and get a substantial enough discount. And the reason that you're not going to be able to get a substantial enough discount on it is because the property is not damaged enough. It's not beat up enough. It's not a fixer enough for you or for the seller to warrant them giving you a substantial discount on the property. So I think and we all go through this phase. I've gone through this phase myself where I look at it and I'm like, it's old, right? It's old. So it's an in-betweener. It's not a house that's like a complete fixer, but it's not a house that has been completely rehabbed either. So it's not up to 2025 standards, but it's not a complete fixer either. So it's somewhere in between. The ideal buyer for a property like this is someone who's going to buy it, live in it, and then probably improve it as they live in it. The ideal buyer for this property is not an investor that is going to come in here and make them, 50 cents on the dollar type of an offer. And I'm sharing this with everybody because I want you to be able to think fast on your toes, so that when you see something like this, you're like, okay, this I already know. I'm not going to get like a massive discount on it. It's just not going to happen. So that's not going to be the approach that we are going to use coming in here and offering them. What are they asking? They're asking $449. I'm not going to make them an offer for $225. It's not going to happen, and I'm not going to get it. Okay. And so that's not the approach I want to make. But there is a caveat to this. And here's the caveat. The caveat to this is that if the property was purchased between, I say this all the time, between 2018 and 2022, okay, between those 4 years, between 2018 to 2022, there are plenty of investors that want to buy properties subject to the existing mortgage, where they will take those mortgages over, okay? So in order to find that out, you have to scroll down to the history. And it clearly shows you here that they bought this property back in 2001 for $225,000. Okay. So since they bought it in 2001 for $225,000, this is not, and number one, it's not a fix and flip opportunity for me. Even though it's dated, I know it's dated, but it's not a fix and flip opportunity because it's still livable and people can live in it and update it as they live. And then on top of that, it wasn't purchased between 2018 and 2022. So I can't even do it as a subject to opportunity. So I've already got two marks against this one. This one's probably not an ideal opportunity for me. Okay. We have to get good at throwing the fish back in the pond, so that we know, so we don't spend our time spinning our wheels going after opportunities that don't exist. This would not be an opportunity for us, in my opinion. Now, if this property were sitting on the market for 100 and, let's say the property was sitting on the market for 145 days, okay? If the property was sitting on the market for 145 days, what are the seller's options? They can continue to reduce the price until it sells, right? Or then we might be able to come back to the seller and we might be able to say, hey, would you be open to some type of creative seller financing? Okay. But since it just went on the market, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. So let's just move on, because I want to use something as a learning experience. Okay. So here's another one. 149,000. Okay, we've got some damage here, some drywall damage. Give me some other photos. Dated interior. It looks like somebody started fixing it and then they kind of gave up on it, is what it looks like to me. Why there's paper in the toilet is beyond me. Okay, so I don't know if this is a garage or if it's a bedroom. If it's a bedroom, then when you see things like this, it's not going to be able to get financed until there's flooring on the bedroom and there's paint. I don't understand why some investors just don't finish the projects like that. But let's see what it says. Highest and best are due by 5 p.m. on August 4th, 2025. Potential property sold as is. Seller will make no repairs. Seller will not provide survey. This property may qualify for seller financing. Okay, so we've got one here now. All right, so we're going to analyze this property. So to me, this property doesn't look like it's in need of major repairs. Okay. Doesn't look like it's in need of major repairs, but it does look like it does need some repairs. It looks like they started it. But the next thing I want to do real quick is I want to check the property history. I want to see what's been going on. Okay. So it was listed for sale in July for $149. Pending sale. It went pending. So that means that it went pending one time. They accepted an offer one time. They listed it in July. But look at this. Look at this. Okay. Now let's talk about this for a second. And let's see if there's anything else. All right. So they put this property up for sale. They listed it for rent in 2015. Then it went pending. Then they removed it. Then they removed it. And then sometime in October, they had it listed for sale for $150. So sometime in October of 2024, they listed it for $150. It looks like it's sold without the agent. Okay, this is important. So I'm going to zoom in here so that you can see what's going on here. You see here how it says source realtor association. So an agent got involved, put it on the market for 150 in October, and I guess it didn't sell. But then 15 days later, the seller sold it by themselves, public record. Anytime you see public record on a property listing on Zillow, what that means is that it was sold privately without the assistance of an agent. Now, I'm just speculating here. I could be completely wrong. But if the seller sold it for 172 by themselves and the agent had it on the market for 150, what do you guys think happened here? Pure speculation, but just curious to see what you guys think.
It was wholesaled.
No, not there. But it was up here. It was up here.
He sold it for a lower price.
Well, so here's what happened. I think, right? You're close. You guys are all thinking. You guys are all on the right track. The seller had it listed with the agent for 150, and I think the seller had their own buyer for 172. So the seller told the agent, take it off the market. I wanted to handle it myself. Right? So then they sold it privately for 172 for higher, and they didn't end up paying the agent. But it gets better, because then after the person who bought it from this person in October, guess what they did? They went and sold it again themselves for 184. So the seller sells it for 172. This looks like it's probably a wholesaler that bought it for 172 and then resold it, made a quick, what is that, $12,000 right here, 3 months later. Okay, so 3 months later, that person that bought it wholesaled it, right? Or wholetailed it, and they sold it for $12,000 more. So that was October, November, December, January. 3 months, they made $12,000. Not too shabby. Okay, why am I showing you this?
For the gastroscope and silicone spray for the bronch.
Okay, so why am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing it with you because a lot of times people will say, well, this doesn't work and people aren't really making money and there's deals aren't being made, or we're listening to the media and the market's not good. Look, I just proved to you right here that somebody bought this in October of 2024. They got it at the right price. And then 3 months later, they made a profit of $12,000 by selling it to another investor. Now, I don't know what happened or what this investor did, but then 6 months later, the investor is now selling it for $149. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't know what happened or what they did or why what's going on with it. And this training isn't necessarily going to be, well, I'll tell you what. Let's just do it. Let me show you in real time what this looks like, okay? As you know, I tell everybody, text the person that you're going to call first. Hi, Peter. My name is Paul. I am going to be giving you a call. Text them first. And the reason that oh, that's not an office line, huh? Okay. So that number didn't work. 221-9547. And this looks like an office line. So what I'd like for you to do is text them first, because the AI on their phone will extract your contact information. Look at how many views. That's nuts. Even 1,000 views is pretty impressive. They got 8,000 views.
Thank you for calling Alpha Realtors. Please leave us a message.
Okay, I'm going to try the other number. 904-463-1008. Hi, Peter. My name is Paul. I am going to be giving you a call. Okay. Let's see if this works.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm looking for Peter, please.
Not in. Can I help you?
Oh, he's not in. Hi. Yeah. Are you, or could you give me some information on the property at Zona Avenue?
The property is under sign back from the seller to a buyer. There is 19 offers.
19 offers. Wow. Okay. How much over list price did it go for?
I cannot disclose
You can't
any of
disclose
that.
that. Got it.
Sorry,
Okay.
nobody can. No.
Got it. Hey, just a quick question, so that I understand what happened here. It looks like the seller purchased it for 184 in January, and then they sold it for 149. They put it up for sale.
No, sir. This is a bank foreclosure. They make a decision
I
as
see.
to how much they're going to list. So
I see. So the
we
bank
don't have
foreclosed on it.
anything to do with that. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, no problem. I appreciate you taking the call.
Sure.
No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so somebody got foreclosed on. Anyway, all right. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to analyze this deal real quick. Okay, just so that everybody gets a better feel on how to do this. So what I normally do is I open this. I open up 2 windows. First thing I do is remember 20% up and 20% down for square footage. Okay, year built 20 years up, 20 years down. Now, lot size does make a difference, all right, when we're talking about like half an acre or more, or when a lot is significantly different than its surrounding lot. So for instance, if this house is sitting on like a 1,500 square foot lot and everybody else has like 7,000 square foot lots, that makes a huge difference in the value. I'm going to want to search for apples to apples and oranges to oranges. I'm going to want to search for other properties that have a 1,500 square foot lot. That means I might have to expand my radius. But the point is, in this case, we're not going to deal with that because it's a 10,000 square foot lot. If it was a 1 acre lot, I would have to find other properties that sit on a 1 acre lot. But this is a pretty standard sized lot, 10,000 square feet. I can compare it to 5,000 square foot lots. I can compare it to a 20,000 square foot lot. You know, you just want to keep it within a certain respectable range. You don't want to get too crazy on it, okay? So 20% up, 20% down, 20 years up, 20 years down. Let's scroll down to the map to see where it's at. Okay, so in this particular case, there are a few rules that you don't break. Number one, you don't cross any natural or man-made boundaries. So you don't cross freeways, highways, mountains, lakes, streams, rivers, oceans. You're not going to cross any of that, you guys. Okay, so everything that you're going to use as comparable is going to stay in this area. This is where I want to be. I want to be in this area. Now, if I can't find any sales, if in the last 6 months there's no activity here, well, number one, that's cause for concern, because what that's telling me is that there's not enough sales in that area. That's the first thing. But if there are no sales in this area, but there's a bunch of sales over here, there is a slight chance that I might break that rule and go over this street, because this is obviously a main artery. I would go over and use these as comps. But in a perfect world, if you've heard me, this is what I call my slice of heaven. This is where I want to find my comparables, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to search, and I'm going to zoom in to where we are. And if I'm not mistaken, we are in this area, right? This is the area that I want to be looking at. This is the area. Okay, then every time you do a search, I need you to reset all your filters. Every single time, reset them, reset them, reset them, reset all your filters every single time. The reason I'm asking you to do that is because there's still crumbs from prior searches that somehow linger and they remain, and it screw ups like the algorithm. Okay, I've noticed that. It does it to me. So now what we're going to do is we've reset all our filters, apply. Then let's go to sold. I only want sold. Then I'm going to start to set my filters. I go to home type, deselect all, only houses. Okay. Then I scroll down and I'm going to go to square feet, 20% up, 20% down. I think it was 1,300. So I'm going to go about 1,000 to maybe 1,500. Then the year built, I think it was like 60. So I'll go to 1970. Then I only want to see houses that have sold in the last 90 days. Now, ideally, I'd really want to see 14 days, right? But look, nothing there. So let's go 90. And now we're at 90 days. Okay, perfect. So now, what do we have here? We've got some comps on this side, which number one makes me feel good because at least I know there's some activity in that area. But number two, I am looking for properties that have been flipped. So I'm looking for after repaired properties. I'm not looking to compare my property to what other properties have sold for in similar condition. I need to get an idea for what my property is going to look like once it's fixed. Very important. Okay, once it's fixed. So in this case, I already have one up here for $320,000. I think I already found my comp. Let's see. Looks pretty flipped to me. That's a flip, right? At some point, you're going to start to like learn or get used to like what a flipped house looks like. Right now, 2025, flipped houses are very whites. They're very bright. They're very light colored floors. They're even white countertops. Okay. You know, it's not like before where it was like all these black countertops. Right now, what's in is very, very bright and light and white and open for floor plan concept. People are tearing down walls. This is what flip looks like right now. Okay. Another dead giveaway is that when they're flipping properties, a lot of these people, I don't know, I don't like doing that, but some of them leave the shrink wrap on the stainless steel appliances just to protect them so they don't get scratches. I understand why they do it because it doesn't look good in photographs, but I just don't like leaving them on there. For me personally, I don't think it shows well, but this is a flip property. Right. Okay. So ours is how big again? Is it 1,300, 1,200? Okay. So 1431, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1431, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1423. This is my comp right here. I already know now that a flipped property is going to sell for about 320. Right. You guys see how I did that? Now, just out of curiosity, what I want to do now is I want to see what this investor bought it for. So I'm going to scroll down to the history again. So they sold it for $319 in June. When did they buy it? They listed it in February for $339. They bought it in November of last year for $181. So they bought it for $181 and they sold it for $319. Now, here's the misconception. Okay. 181 minus 319. The misconception is, wow, they made $138,000 spread on that. That was a great flip. Okay, well, number one, couple things. I need us to start thinking like investors. Was it really 138 profit? No, that's gross. Okay, because we don't know what this property looked like before. So we don't know how much they had to rehab. But I mean, to me, it looks like that's a new roof, new windows. I don't know, though. I'm not sure. But let's just say even if it was a lipstick fixer, and very, very few properties are. Let's say it was. I don't want to do that. Let's say it's traditional fixer. A traditional fix and flip property is going to be $45 a square foot. Okay, so now let's talk about that real quick. When we are doing flips and you're looking at something, a lipstick fixer is a house that only needs flooring and paint. If all it needs is flooring and paint, just new paint on the walls and new floor, then it's $25 a square foot. All right. Only 10% of the properties that we look at are going to qualify for lipstick fixers. Very few are lipstick fixers. 80% of the time, it is going to be $45 a square foot. $45 a square foot to remodel the house. In the beginning of this training, we were looking at a house that was dated and old. Okay. Even that house is still going to cost you $45 a square foot to rehab. Anytime you have to rehab and bring it up to modern standards, it's $45 a square foot. Okay, even if it's not a tear down, but it's dated, then it's still $45 a square foot. Paul, what if it's gutted? What if they've taken out the drywall and there's no electrical and there's no plumbing and it's down to the studs? It's still $45 a square foot. Okay. $45 a square foot. 80% of the time, it's $45 a square foot. Why even when it's gutted and studded? Well, the reason it's $45 a square foot is because when people come in and rehab a house, number one, they're going to gut it anyway. But number two, we're going to get to that, Diego. But number two, you have to update the plumbing. You have to update the electrical. You have to update all of these things. So you're still going to go into the walls and you're going to update all of that stuff anyway. So you're going to end up gutting it anyway, right? Now, Diego brings up a good point. What about fire damage? Fire damage, okay, depending on how damaged it is, okay, that if it's a real fire damaged property, if it's like, 60, 70% burned down or damaged, the wood is still going to have to be replaced. That's a $75 a square foot job. $75 per square foot to rehab a property. Okay, when it has to be bad though. It has to be falling on its side. It has to be fire burned. It has to be completely water damaged because of a flood. I mean, it just has to be super, super, super bad. 10% of those properties are going to be $75 a square foot. Okay, 10%. And if it's fire damaged and it's only a portion of the house, Diego, just a small portion of it that's been damaged by the fire, I would still go with $45 a square foot. Okay, if 75 really has to be bad. You know what? Let me show you a $75 square foot job. I'm going to show you one right now. Hold on. Then you'll understand because I want to put things into perspective. Okay, you want to see fire damaged?
Are fire damage properties a good investment for a fixer?
It depends. Okay. So you're asking a good question, but here's the answer to that question. It's not, are fire damaged properties a good investment? Are you getting it at the right price that makes it a good investment?
Okay.
Anything can be a good investment if you get it at the right price. Yeah. Okay. So let me show you what $75 a square foot looks like. This is $75 a square foot. That's our math. Second floor, and I didn't want to fall on the second floor. I shouldn't even have gone up to the second floor. Oh, I got a nail in my shoe there.
Paul, do you remember that Atlanta property? It was pretty bad too. Would you say that's a $75 job?
So I think that one was still 45. It was
Yes.
bad, but it was still 45. This has no roof.
Okay.
Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. For it to be $75, it's got to be like one of the worst of the worst. It's got to be really, 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 really bad. Most houses, believe it or not, we can rehab it at $45 a square foot. But, and I don't want to like confuse anyone. There are some investors that honestly, Bo, that one on Flowers and this one, there are some investors that would come in here and you know what they would do? They would just demolish it and start from scratch. I've had investors that I work with that will look at this and they'll be like, it's not even worth it for me to try to save this. I'd rather just demo it and start completely brand new. And then there's other investors that will look at this and they're like, yeah, I can make this work. I know how to do it. So it's just like, it just depends. I don't know. But Flowers, in my opinion, was still $45 a square foot, especially if you took off the non-permitted stuff that they did. You just take that off anyway. This you can't. There's no way. This was like, it was dangerous being on the second floor. I thought I was going to fall through it, and I shouldn't even have gone through it. Like I was stupid, but I wanted some social media content, so I did it. I risked it anyway. All right, so that's $75. Okay. All right, so we were talking about how an investor looks at a deal, okay? So it looked like this guy or this gal made $181,000 profit, right? But let's say it was a $45 per square foot rehab. 1423 times $45, it's $64,000. So now all of a sudden, out of the one, and that's being conservative. I see a new roof, by the way. I need to talk about that. Anytime they have to add a new roof, it's $10 a square foot extra. So instead of the $45, it's $55 a square foot. Okay, so let's say I think they put a new roof. So 1423 times $55, now it's $78,000. So out of that $100,000 profit, immediately about $80,000 is gone, right? Okay. Now the other thing to keep in mind is I'm teaching you guys how to think like investors as we comp. They bought it when? They bought it in November for $181,000. Now, if they paid all cash for this, great. God bless them. But most investors, what do when they purchase these flips?
Finance?
They use hard money. They use hard money.
Oh,
It's easier for them to use hard money. It's better for them to use hard money so that they use other people's money. They leverage other people's money, and then they make a profit. Okay, they make less of a profit, and I'm going to show you. But the truth is, they still use other people's money. So if they're using other people's money, that means that they bought it in November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. They sold it in June. So let's not count June. So that's 7 months. So that means that for 7 months, guess what? That investor, if they did hard money, also had to pay hard money mortgage payments, right? Towards the property. So let's say that their mortgage payments, they bought it for 181, but the way hard money works, and now I'm teaching you guys like flipping, how to flip. The way hard money works is when you borrow from a hard money lender, they lend you the cost of the house, and then what else do they lend you on? The repairs.
the rehab, yeah.
Right. So we came to the conclusion that the rehab is going to be about 80. So they lent us 181, and then they're lending us another 80 for the rehab. So now they've actually lent us 260,000, and the interest rate for hard money loans are much higher. They're usually 10 to 12%. I've seen some as high as 14%, but let's say it's 12%. On a 12% mortgage of a $260,000 loan, I don't know, you're probably looking at maybe $3,000 a month. So we just counted them. There's 7 months that this investor had to pay $3,000 a month in mortgage for the loan. So now they've spent $81,000 in repairs, right? And then they also had to spend $21,000 in mortgage payments. So now that's $100,000 that ate into their profit. So remember we said that they made about 181. $100,000 of that is gone. Now it's only $81,000 in profit. Okay. Now what other expenses do they have? They put it on the market. They put it on the MLS. That means they had to pay who?
Agent.
Unless they're licensed themselves. If they're licensed themselves, then they can avoid that expense. But let's say they're not, because not all investors like to be licensed. They just rather do their own flips. Let's say it cost them 5% to sell this property, which is typical. That's standard. That's reasonable. So now they sold it for $319, or no, $319, $320, and then it cost them 5%. $16,000. So now, think about that. $21,000 in mortgage payments, $81,000 in repairs. Whoops, sorry. 21 plus 81 plus how much was it in commissions? 16,000 in commissions. They're at 118. So now all of a sudden, that $181,000 profit that it looked like they made is really down to 63. Oh, and guess what? Guess who else has their palm out? Uncle Sam. Now you got to pay taxes on that. And there's also a chance that you may have to pay other expenses that may not even come up. What's my point here? Why am I sharing this to you? Because if you start to think the way an investor thinks, you'll also start to understand that when you're doing these numbers and you're comping and you're using our deal calculator and you're doing all that stuff, you start to realize that they're not actually profiting as much as everybody starts to think. All right. Even real estate agents make this mistake. Again, real estate agents, 80 to 90% of them are horrible investors. So most real estate agents are just going to look at this and they're going to be like, yeah, well, I just made my client $181,000 in profit. They should be paying me 6 or 7% for the work I did. Wrong. See, they didn't. They made 63,000 maybe, and that's in a perfect world. That's assuming that everything went according to plan, that the contractors didn't deviate from what the budget was. That's assuming that they only paid 5%, they could have paid more. That's assuming that they didn't cover any closing costs for the buyers, because sometimes investors have to do that too. So there's a bunch of different other variables that come into play here that I haven't even gone into. 63 is in a perfect world. Okay, perfect. But it looked like initially when we just analyzed this, it looked like you're looking at it when you're brand new and you're like, man, that investor, made out like a bandit. They made off with, $181,000, and that's not the way it works. Right? Everybody with me so far?
When you present a deal to an investor, we have to include the Uncle Sam tax as well, like you
Nah,
said.
I don't. I
Oh, okay.
I don't include it, but I'm just saying that like you should know about it. You should
Mm.
definitely know about it because you need to understand the way that they think, right? Which will make you a better negotiator on the front end. Bo, over the weekend, you and I were working on. By the way, have we heard from Andre?
No.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it was a shock. So we're gonna have to follow up with him. You know who you should talk to is maybe talk to his brother
Okay.
or text his brother the same video
Okay.
and tell him, hey, listen, just want to let you know, here's what I sent your brother. You know, if you got any feedback, I'm open to listening to it and see
Okay.
what he says. Yeah. So what's my point? I did a video over the weekend on a deal that Bo is working on, and the seller wants something like 335 or 350 or something like that, and the seller has a real estate agent that is telling them that they could put it on the market and probably get four. Did they say 400 or 500? I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, 400.
Yeah, that they could get 400, and there's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to get $400,000 for that property. It's just not going to happen. That property has over $100,000 in repairs that need to be made, and not just repairs, but upgrades and updates. Because it goes back to what I was saying earlier when we were looking at the house that's dated. You can't just go in there and just update one bathroom, right? Either you're going to update the whole house or you're not going to update it at all, but you're going to have to pick. Okay, that's another thing that sellers want to. Well, look, all you have to do is put in a new bathroom. That's false. That's not the way it works, right? Because if somebody's going to be buying a house, right, they're not going to be buying a house that just has a brand new bathroom but has a completely dated kitchen that needs to be dated, right? And then expect them to pay top dollar. They're not going to do it. If I'm going to pay top dollar, then I need the whole house to be remodeled. Right, I need the whole house rehab. Anyway, that's a different conversation. But my point is that we presented it, and I screen recorded a video showing him the facts, black and white, like these are the numbers, and at the price he was asking for, or at a price that the buyers that he was under contract with before, they'd be losing money, lose a complete loser. All right, so now let's talk about the deal calculator and how I would analyze this one. Okay. So again, if you don't have access to this, let me know. Everybody has this calculator in their folder. All right. So let's say, for instance, I was doing this one. I copy this. I'll paste it in here. All right. So you paste it in there. And then you're going to put the list price. So the list price is $149,500. Okay. Now, there was a time where like I used to tell people, hey, just put them in there and then I'll analyze it for you. I can't do that anymore. My schedule is just, it's not permitting it. So I don't want anybody to think, and I don't want to set any false pretenses or expectations. I don't want people thinking that if you put it on there, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be able to analyze it, because that's not the case. There's going to have to be a certain degree of you being able to do this yourself. When we're ready to make offers, I can come in and take a look at it one more time. But I don't want people thinking I'm going to go in there and analyze every deal, because it's impossible. So you put the price, and then we calculate what the ARV is. What does ARV stand for? It stands for after repaired value. We already know that the ARV is this, 320. Okay, so we'll put 320. Now for repairs, we already calculated repairs at like 81,000. Right? $45 a square foot. Well, $55 a square foot. 55 because I think they put a brand new roof on that other one. And then, so there's three rules to doing this business. Okay, some people use a 90% rule. Some people use a 70% rule. For a long time in my career, I was using the 70% rule for a very, very, very long time, because it worked and it was okay. But now that the market is adjusting, that 70% rule isn't as effective. Okay, and I'm not going to break down why or why not. I'm just going to tell you it's less effective. So there's the 90% rule. 90% rule says you're going to lose $50,000 at $50,000 on this deal. Okay, don't buy it. Then the 70% rule says if you're going to buy it, you need to get it at 123, which isn't too bad, because if they're asking 149, 123 isn't a bad price. Okay. And then the last method is the deal calculator. And if you come down to the deal calculator, here's how this works. Here's how you break it down. You're going to only put the repairs and the ARV and how much you want to make. Okay. Now, a good rule of thumb is that you can probably make about 10% of whatever the ARV is as like your wholesale fee. That's excuse me, not the ARV, of whatever the sales price is going to be. That's roughly what you could probably make, about 10%. Okay. When you start to go beyond 10%, it makes it harder to sell. And remember, investors are going to know how much you are making. Okay, they're going to know it. Why? Because at the end of the transaction, there's a settlement statement. It's going to show up, and they're going to realize how much you're making. And they may learn it early, or they may learn it later. But they're going to learn. So it makes it harder to sell a deal. So, for instance, if you're selling like a $50,000 deal and you're trying to make a $20,000 profit, it's going to be hard because the investor is going to be like, you're trying to make almost half of what I'm buying the property for. That doesn't make sense, right? So just assume that a good rule of thumb is probably about 10%. 10% threshold is roughly what you can expect to earn on the purchase, your assignment fee for the purchase price. So in this case, if we're selling a property that's about 149, I can expect to make about 15, roughly. Okay. So now, what price do I get it at? Well, if you haven't seen me do this before, you only modify the yellow cells, nothing else. Okay. So what is MAO? That's our maximum allowable price. Now they're asking 149. Okay. So if I offer them full price, how much is the investor making? The investor making is 18%. That's pretty good. Okay. Now in this case, our goal is to make sure that this number is about 15%. Okay, I need them to get about 15%. That's the minimum. Now, my personal standard for myself is I need to get at least 20%. That's just for me. But most investors are pretty good. Sorry, voice crack. Most investors are pretty good with 15%. If you can get them about 15%, they're going to be happy. Now, if you can get them 20%, they'll be thrilled. But if you can get them 15 cents on every dollar that they spend, they'll probably do the deal. So I already know now that at 149, I'm making them 18%. This means that I can offer them a little bit more. What if I come up to 155? Okay, 15.6, maybe 157. I'm at 14.86. So 156 sounds like it's the right number. That's about the price where I need to offer on this deal. Okay, 156. Now, here's the deal. We already contacted them. All right. And I know what some of you are already thinking, but Paul, the calculator says to offer them 156. We get them 15% on their money. Everybody's happy. So why don't I just offer them 156? Well, in this case, it may work because I have a feeling that they underpriced this on purpose to create bidding wars. Okay. Agents do this. Agents are smart. There are some that are very, very proficient at this business. There are some. Okay. This particular agent approached it that way. They said, well, why don't we just price it so aggressive that it just creates competition? You don't get to 8,000 views by mistake. Okay. So he underpriced this thing. All right. That's why when she said we have 19 offers, what's happening is people are offering more than the property, than the asking price. So in theory, you could probably lock this up at about 156 and be able to wholesale it for an assignment fee of $15,000 or to another investor for $171,000. That's how that works. Okay. Now, remember we were talking about hard money. Okay. This is for all cash though. If they do use hard money, look, all of a sudden, remember how we were talking about profits? Their net profit, if they use hard money, is only $15,000 here. If they're using all cash, it's $42,000 and they're making 15%. We're going to be basing most of our decisions on all cash. Okay. Now, if the investor wants to use hard money, that's on them. But we're going to be basing all of our decisions on getting 15% here. Okay. Now, here's where I need to train you guys. So what happens, Paul, if this property's been sitting on the market for 150 days? 150 days. They don't have any offers. And the deal calculator is telling me to offer 156, but they're listing it for 149. What do I do in that situation? Okay. Well, in that particular situation, all right, we're missing some information. Okay, something's wrong. All right. Otherwise, if the deal calculator is telling us offer more than what they're asking and it's been sitting on the market for 150 days, then maybe there's more repairs that we're not aware of. The numbers just aren't vibing. So what you can do or what you should do then, is take a look at the opportunity, and this is where you build your value. You're going to have to offer roughly about 25% less than what it is that they're asking. Okay, if it's a fixer. Okay, 25% less. So 150 times 0.25 is 37,000 minus 150. We need to offer about 112. All right, 25% less. And then what you're going to do is, again, you're going to add your fee. Threshold is 10%. So threshold on this would be about 11,000. So 112 plus 11, you're at 123, and you should be able to sell the deal. Right? If you really want to be safe, though, you can do 30%. Okay, 30%. So 150 times 0.3 is 45 minus 150. Now you got it at 105. You add your fee on top. Now you're at 115. Why am I telling you to do this? Because this way you're making your deal more attractive, but you're also justifying your value to the investor. Right? Because here's what an investor is thinking. And Daedric and I have gone over this a few times now. The investor is thinking, why should I pay 115 to Paul when I can just go straight to the agent and get it for 105? Why not? Why do that? So you actually have to do the investor's job of negotiating it down to where it's attractive enough for them. Most investors don't have the time to do this type of deep negotiations. They're too busy with their projects. They're too busy. They're just too busy. And most of them aren't even taking the time to hunt new deals. Some do, but most of them, they're just busy monitoring their existing deals. Will, we just got a deal. Drew had that fixed and ready and back on the market in less than a month, right? That doesn't happen by accident. They have a good team and a good crew. He's out there, working his deals, which is why the better we get at bringing him more deals, the more likely he'll close on them and get them done. He just needs to have them at his price. So is everybody with what I just did?
Yeah, I have a question though. So, I mean, one of the things that we ask when we, call the realtors on these on-market things is, are there offers on the table? And she said there's 19. So, I mean, to me, I would have kind of already filtered that out because there's so much competition.
Oh, 100%.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't be going for this.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I tell everybody, this is not the market for us to be getting into bidding wars. It's just not. We're not going to do that in this market. We're stabilizing right now, and we're probably going to see a decline. So this is not the market for us to be like aggressive with our pricing. Number one, we're going to have a difficult time wholesaling it. Number two, a lot of people are going to be buying flips, and they're not going to make money on them. They're going to be losing money on them. And I've made this mistake in my career many times. So we have to be smart about our numbers. We also have to be smart enough to walk away from deals. We also have to be smart enough to say, hey, thanks, these numbers just don't pan out for me. And as you do this business more, you're going to have investors say the same thing to you. So you want to get good at like doing that and learning when to say, hey, it's that old Kenny Rogers song, right? Know when to fold them, know when to hold them. Anyway, now I'm showing my age again. So
another quick question. Another one on this property, it was kind of weird. The numbers were weird. It's like they bought it and now they're selling it because obviously she said it was a foreclosure. But I've been seeing a lot of properties where it's like, oh, they just bought it like in 2025 or 2024. Like, in most of those cases, would that not be a good deal? Because, I mean,
if they just bought it in the last 8 to 10 months and they're selling it for less than what they bought it for, a couple things could have happened. They could have ran out. They may have ran out of money to do the rehab. It's all speculation, so I'm not really sure what happened. But we're not going to take those mortgages over probably because especially you guys, if it's an incomplete rehab, they're probably a construction loan or a hard money loan, and we're not going to take over a hard money loan or a construction loan. That's the first thing. Just because the terms obviously aren't favorable enough to take over, but more importantly, we're taking over somebody's problem. So it's probably going to turn into a short sale where the hard money lender has to accept less than what they owe. So we'd have to help them negotiate a short sale. So yeah, there are opportunities, but we're just not going to take. It's not going to be like a subject to opportunity. It's going to be one where we offer less than what they owe.
I have a question. I want to backtrack a bit. I don't know if you mentioned this or whatnot, but you said that you were gonna offer them a higher price than what it was listed for, and 'cause I'm just thinking like shouldn't we be getting like the lowest offer, or shouldn't they be accepting the lowest offer possible?
Yeah, good. Okay, good question. I'm glad you caught that. So, in this particular case, this agent underpriced the property. Okay. Now they did. That's why the views are so high. The views are so high. You don't like. Let's look at another property. Okay. Let's just pick another one. And here's 172. So it's not priced significantly higher. Okay. But look at the views. Okay. 400 views, and it's only $30,000 more. Right. So why was that getting so many views? Because the investors know, they've done the numbers, and they know that in this case, this property fixed up is going to probably go for a 320, which we have data to support that. So we know it's going to go for 320. We know that the repairs on this are probably going to be about 81,000, right? We know this, so there's room for us to be able to turn this into a successful fix and flip, or to be able to turn this into a successful wholesale deal where you assign it. But anytime you see, I'm going to say even 1,000 views or more, it's getting attention. It's getting some type of attention. Now, I only showed you that number because I wanted you to understand that in this case, you could potentially offer more. I'm not suggesting that you do that. And I just said that in this market, I don't want us doing that. But I just want you to know what the numbers look like, what the threshold is, and what your job is. Your job is to try to bring your investor about 15% cash on cash return.
Got it.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, I mean, yeah, so I guess you're just using that as an example, but so when we are making offers, would there ever be cases where you're making an offer above the listed Zillow price because they've underpriced it? Like, would an end buyer investor kind of understand that? Or because we've had this conversation where it's like an investor's not going to pay more or equal to what's the listed Zillow price.
Right. Okay. So no, I don't like doing that, especially if it's an on-market deal.
Okay.
If it's on market, I don't want to make an offer higher than what it's listed for ever, even if the numbers make sense. Even if I know that I can bring them 15% return, cash on cash return, I'm not going to make an offer higher than what it is for list price, because it would have already probably sold. A smart investor would have already snatched it up. So that's where I suggest doing the 25 to 30%. 30% is probably smarter. The offer always, even if your numbers say, hey, offer what they're asking, the numbers work. Don't do it. Offer them 30% less, and then give yourself a margin to put an assignment fee on top, or you take it down yourself.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So hopefully this helped everybody out, understand. And I really wanted you to see it from the perspective of what the investor sees too. Because number one, it'll make you a better investor. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what that's our goal is, to become better investors, right? And we become better investors that use wholesaling as an exit strategy, that use wholesaling as a way to print money, that use wholesaling as a way to profit. But we all want to become investors, right? So I taught you a little bit of the mindset of an investor and what those numbers look like. And this way you understand why it's so important for you to negotiate the right price. Because while it looks like the investor is making more money, case in point, they sold this for 320. We went over this. They sold it for 320 in June, and they bought it for 180 in November. We just went over how they didn't really make 100, whatever the profit was. Almost 160 or 140. They didn't make $140,000 in profit, right? They're lucky if they made 60, if that. And that's if in a perfect world where absolutely nothing went wrong. right? So you have to understand that when you're showing an investor an opportunity, you're thinking, oh, they're making $140,000 when it's not the case. They're making a lot less than that because of all the expenses, including the repairs, including the mortgage payments if they're using a hard money lender, including the commissions they have to pay agents, including the taxes that they have to pay, including the closing costs, right? And including any unexpected things that might come up during the process. That's why it's so important for us to make sure that we negotiate the right price so that way it works for them. It works for us to be able to tack a fee on top, and then it gets the property sold for the investor. So when people are saying like, well, all you're doing is lowballing all you're doing is lowballing sellers. No, you're not. All you're doing is bridging the gap between fantasy and reality, right? And in some cases, we're actually doing it better than agents, right? Because there's plenty of agents that just leave listings on the market just sitting for days, weeks, months, right? Hoping that they'll get like a Hail Mary offer. And then here comes along Walter the wholesaler, Wendy the wholesaler, and she's able to bridge that gap, and yet agents want to paint them as a thief for doing what they couldn't do themselves. I'll get off my soapbox now. Okay, all right, 10:03, everybody. I appreciate everybody being on the call. Hopefully this helped you out. I'm going to make sure that once this processes, I upload it to school. That way everybody has access to it. Bo, don't forget, let's send that out to Andre's brother. Daedric, I'm going to have that done for you in the next 20 minutes.
Okay.
Kevin, I'm going to give you a call real quick to figure out what's going on with your Google Drive, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, guys, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.